The door creaked open, and there he was, the untouchable CEO of Meridian Enterprises, Alexander Reeves, hunched over his mahogany desk, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. For Jake Miller, a struggling single father of triplets who'd been working as the company's maintenance supervisor for just 3 months, it was like seeing a mountain crumble. The man whose stern gaze made board members tremble was breaking apart, alone in his corner office at 9:30 p.m. on a Friday night. If you've ever witnessed someone you thought was invincible show their vulnerability, you know that feeling, that moment when the world shifts and nothing is quite what you believed it to be. Stay with me through this incredible true story that changed not just 2 lives, but an entire company. And if this resonates with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Jake froze in the doorway, master key still in hand. He'd been told to check all executive offices before locking up for the weekend, a responsibility he'd taken on for the overtime pay that helped cover his children's mounting medical bills. He should have knocked. He should have backed away quietly. Instead, something made him step forward. "Mr. Reeves?" "Sir?" "I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were still here." Alexander's head snapped up, eyes red-rimmed and swollen. For a moment, fury flashed across his face, the familiar mask of authority attempting to reassert itself. Then, like a balloon deflating, he seemed to collapse inward again. "Miller, isn't it? Maintenance?" His voice was hoarse. "Yes, sir." Jake Miller. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them, the kind that exists between people from entirely different worlds. Alexander Reeves, 45, self-made billionaire with features regularly gracing business magazines. Jake Miller, 34, former construction worker who'd lost his wife to cancer 2 years ago, leaving him to raise their 3-year-old triplets alone. "You can go," Alexander finally said, straightening papers on his desk with trembling hands. "Lock up on your way out." But Jake didn't move. Later, he couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was because he recognized the look in the CEO's eyes, the same hollow emptiness he'd seen in his own reflection countless times since becoming a widower. "Sir, is everything all right?" Alexander laughed bitterly. "All right? No, Miller, everything is not all right. But that's hardly your concern, is it?" Jake should have left then. His shift was over. His babysitter was charging by the hour. His children, Lily, Lucas, and Liam, would be waiting for their bedtime story. Yet he found himself setting down his maintenance cart and taking a tentative step into the office. "Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who doesn't matter," Jake offered quietly. "Someone outside your circle." Alexander stared at him, clearly taken aback by the maintenance worker's boldness. For a tense moment, Jake was certain he'd be fired on the spot. Instead, the CEO gestured to a chair. "You have 15 minutes before I come to my senses, and remember I don't discuss personal matters with employees." Jake sat, noticing for the first time the framed photograph on Alexander's desk, turned face down. With careful movements, the CEO righted it, revealing the image of a smiling woman with kind eyes. "My wife, Eleanor," he said softly. "Today would have been our 20th anniversary." Jake felt his chest tighten. "I'm sorry, sir." "Is she gone?" "No. Just gone from my life." Alexander's fingers traced the edge of the frame. "She left me 3 years ago. Said she couldn't compete with this company anymore." He gestured around the expansive office. "Said I'd forgotten how to be human." The irony wasn't lost on Jake. Here was a man who had everything he was working overtime to provide for his children: wealth, power, success, yet he sat alone on what should have been a celebration, clutching a photograph of happiness lost. "I have 3 kids, Jake found himself saying. "Triplets. They're 5 now." Alexander nodded absently, clearly wondering why this information was relevant. "My wife, Sarah, died when they were 3. Cancer." Jake swallowed hard. I know what it's like to stare at a photograph and wonder where it all went wrong. Something shifted in Alexander's expression, a flicker of genuine interest breaking through his grief. Triplets? And you're raising them alone? Jake nodded. It's why I took this job. The health benefits are better than what I had in construction, and the triplets have some ongoing medical needs from being born premature. That must be challenging. Jake laughed softly. That's one word for it. Impossible some days. Worth it every day. The conversation might have ended there, a brief, unusual moment of connection between two men from different worlds. But Alexander's intercom buzzed, startling them both. Mr. Reeves, came the voice of his executive assistant. Your car is waiting downstairs. Alexander pressed the button. Cancel it, Patricia. I've had a change of plans. He looked at Jake with an expression the maintenance worker couldn't quite read. Miller, your 15 minutes are up. But I find myself reluctant to spend this evening alone with my regrets. Would you permit me to meet these triplets of yours? The request was so unexpected that Jake could only stare. Sir? I understand if it's inappropriate. But perhaps. Alexander hesitated, vulnerability showing through again. Perhaps I need to remember what Eleanor meant about being human. That night changed everything, though neither man could have predicted how. Jake's modest two-bedroom apartment in the suburbs was a world away from Alexander's penthouse. The babysitter, Mrs. Gonzalez from next door, looked stunned when Jake arrived with the CEO of Meridian Enterprises in tow. The children just finished their dinner, she said, eyes wide as she gathered her things. They're playing in the living room. The living room was a chaos of toys, children's books, and the creative disorder that comes with active 5-year-olds. Alexander stood awkwardly in the doorway, clearly out of his element as 3 identical faces turned toward him with curious expressions. Kids, this is Mr. Reeves. He's my boss, Jake explained, watching Alexander's reaction carefully. Lily, always the boldest, approached first. Why are you wearing a suit? It's nighttime. Daddy wears pajamas at nighttime. Alexander looked down at his $5,000 custom suit as if seeing it for the first time. I suppose I forgot to change. Lucas, the analytical one, studied the visitor. Are you here to fire Daddy? Because Tommy's dad got fired and they had to move to a smaller house. No, Alexander said quickly. I'm not here to fire your father. Liam, the quietest of the 3, simply offered Alexander a slightly battered toy dinosaur. You can hold Rex if you're sad. Daddy says Rex helps with sad feelings. Alexander took the dinosaur with the careful reverence one might show a priceless artifact. Thank you. How did you know I was sad? Liam shrugged. Your eyes look like Daddy's eyes did after Mommy went to heaven. The simple observation, so innocent yet so perceptive, seemed to hit Alexander like a physical blow. He sank onto the couch, still holding the dinosaur, as Jake busied himself picking up toys and apologizing for the mess. Don't apologize, Alexander said quietly. This is a home. It's supposed to look lived in. The evening unfolded in ways neither man expected. Alexander, who commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals, found himself sitting cross-legged on a carpet, helping the triplets build a block tower. Jake, who had been certain he would be counting the minutes until his boss left, instead found himself relaxing as he watched his children draw the stoic CEO into their world. At bedtime, when Jake announced it was time for stories, the triplets insisted Alexander join them. Crowded into the children's bedroom, with its 3 small beds and walls covered in artwork, Alexander listened as Jake read from a well-worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are. The triplets fell asleep one by one, but Jake continued reading, his voice gentle in the dim light of the bedroom. When he finally closed the book, he found Alexander staring at the sleeping children with an expression of profound loss. I wanted children, the CEO confessed as they stepped into the hallway. Eleanor and I tried for years. Fertility treatments, specialists, nothing worked. Eventually, I buried myself in work because it was easier than facing our empty nursery. Jake nodded, understanding all too well how grief could reshape a life. Sarah and I were shocked when we found out we were having triplets. Terrified, actually. We'd been trying for so long, and suddenly we were preparing for 3 babies at once. In Jake's small kitchen, over cups of coffee that grew cold as they talked, 2 men from different worlds found common ground in loss, in fatherhood, in the struggle to balance work and family. Alexander spoke of building his company from nothing, of the sacrifices that had cost him his marriage. Jake shared the daily challenges of raising 3 children alone while trying to keep a roof over their heads. "They're extraordinary children," Alexander said as the evening drew to a close. "You're doing an incredible job with them." Jake smiled tiredly. "Some days I feel like I'm failing them completely. There's never enough time, never enough money, never enough of me to go around." Alexander was quiet for a moment, then asked a question that seemed to come from nowhere. "The medical needs you mentioned, what exactly are they dealing with?" Jake hesitated, then explained. Lily had chronic respiratory issues from her premature birth. Lucas needed regular physical therapy for motor skill development. Liam had been diagnosed with a mild form of autism that required specialized support. The company's health insurance covered some of it, but the copays and uncovered treatment strained Jake's budget to breaking point. "I don't mean to complain," Jake added quickly. "We're managing. The kids are thriving, all things considered." Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you for this evening, Miller. It's been illuminating." As he prepared to leave, the CEO paused at the door. "Your children said something that struck me. When I asked how they knew I was sad, the quiet one, Liam, said my eyes looked like yours did after your wife died." Jake nodded. "He's observant." "They all are." What they said next, though. Alexander seemed to be struggling with emotion. "When I was helping them with the blocks, and one of the towers fell, do you remember what they told me?" Jake smiled. "They said, 'That's okay, you can build it again. Different doesn't mean worse.'" "Different doesn't mean worse," Alexander repeated softly. Out of the mouths of babes. Monday morning arrived with the usual chaos in the Miller household. Jake rushed to get 3 kindergartners fed, dressed, and delivered to school before heading to work. He was so busy he almost missed the email from Human Resources requesting his presence at 9:30 a.m. His stomach dropped. Had he crossed a line by inviting the CEO into his home? Was he about to be fired for inappropriate fraternization? He couldn't afford to lose this job, not with the children's medical bills and the rent increase his landlord had just announced. The HR director's office was on the executive floor, a place Jake usually only visited with his maintenance cart. He arrived exactly at 9:30, palms sweating. "Mr. Miller, please come in," the HR director said warmly. "Mr. Reeves is waiting for you." Alexander Reeves stood as Jake entered, looking more rested than he had on Friday night. The office was filled with several other executives Jake recognized but had never spoken to, the CFO, the COO, the head of the company's charitable foundation. "Miller, thank you for coming," Alexander said formally. "I've asked these individuals to join us because what I'm about to propose requires their expertise." Jake nodded nervously, still uncertain why he was there. "After our conversation Friday evening, I spent the weekend reflecting on several things," Alexander continued. "One of which is our company's approach to supporting employees with exceptional family circumstances." The CFO stepped forward with a folder. "Mr. Miller, we've reviewed your situation and would like to offer you participation in a new program we're developing." Jake accepted the folder with confusion. Inside was a detailed proposal for what appeared to be a comprehensive support system for employees with children who had special medical or developmental needs. The benefits included flexible working hours, additional paid leave for medical appointments, supplemental insurance coverage, and an on-site childcare facility with specialized staff. "I don't understand," Jake said, looking up from the papers. "This doesn't exist at Meridian." "It does as of this morning," Alexander replied. "You're the first participant in what we're calling the Family Forward Initiative. We'd like your input on how to develop it further." Jake stared at him in disbelief. "Sir, this would change everything for families like mine." "That's the intention," Alexander said. "But there's more. The head of our foundation has something to discuss with you." The foundation director stepped forward with another folder. "Mr. Miller, we've established a new scholarship program for children with medical challenges. Your triplets would qualify. It would cover their educational and therapeutic needs through college." Jake felt the room spin slightly. "Why? Why would you do this?" Alexander dismissed the executives with a nod, waiting until the door closed behind them before answering. "Your children reminded me of something I'd forgotten, Miller. When that block tower fell, and they said, 'Different doesn't mean worse,' it wasn't just about blocks. They've known nothing but challenge and loss their entire lives, yet they approach each day with hope and resilience." He moved to the window, looking out over the city. "I built this company believing success meant never showing weakness, never admitting failure. I drove away the person I loved most because I couldn't accept that our life had taken an unexpected turn." Turning back to Jake, Alexander continued, "Your children are right. Different doesn't mean worse. It just means we have to build something new from the pieces we have." The Family Forward Initiative transformed Meridian Enterprises. What began as a program for one maintenance supervisor and his triplets expanded to support dozens of families within the company. The on-site childcare facility, eventually named the Eleanor Reeves Family Center, in honor of Alexander's ex-wife, became a model that other corporations sought to emulate. 6 months after that fateful Friday night, Jake Miller was promoted to Director of Employee Wellness, tasked with ensuring the company's policies truly supported its workers' needs. His triplets became regular visitors to the office, their artwork decorating not just their father's new office but Alexander's as well. And Alexander Reeves? The CEO who had once been known for his ruthless business acumen became equally renowned for his compassionate leadership. The man who had lost his marriage to his ambition found a new purpose in creating a company that valued the humanity of its employees. 1 year to the day after Jake had walked in on his boss crying, he received a text message with a photograph attached. It showed Alexander and Eleanor Reeves, standing together at a charity gala supporting children's medical research. The message read, "She agreed to coffee. Said she'd heard I'd finally learned what she tried to teach me years ago. Different doesn't mean worse, sometimes it means better. Thank the triplets for me." That night, as Jake tucked his children into bed, Lily asked a question that had become part of their nightly routine, "Daddy, did we help someone today?" Jake smiled, thinking of the photograph and all that had changed in a year. "Yes, sweetheart. You helped someone remember how to be human again." As our story comes to a close, I hope it reminds you of the power of unexpected connections and the wisdom we can find in the most unlikely places, even from the mouths of children. Sometimes the people who seem to have everything are the ones most in need of what money can't buy: perspective, compassion, and the simple truth that different doesn't mean worse. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories that celebrate the extraordinary moments in ordinary lives. Remember, you never know when a simple act of kindness, like offering comfort to someone in pain, might set in motion changes that ripple outward, touching countless lives. Because in the end, it wasn't just what the triplets said that left everyone speechless, it was how their innocent wisdom transformed a company, reunited a couple, and reminded us all that our shared humanity is the greatest asset we possess.